Picture yourself at a bustling networking event. The air hums with conversation, clusters of people orbiting the most charismatic voices in the room. You hover near the edge, quietly wondering, how does everyone else know exactly what to say, where to stand, whose hand to shake? As you offer a hesitant smile, the conversation circles close but never quite lets you in. It feels like you're missing some secret password, a pattern others learned but you never saw. In every gathering, there are people who glide effortlessly from one circle to the next, laughter and respect following them like a shadow. Then there are the rest of us, hesitating, strategizing, and second-guessing each move. Most chalk this up to personality or simple luck. But the real reason is invisible. There is an unwritten playbook operating beneath every social interaction. It's an invisible handshake, a matrix of hidden social laws that everyone is subject to, but only a few consciously understand. Those who just don't get it suffer in ways they can't articulate, overlooked at work, ignored in social scenes, always a beat behind. Meanwhile, the ones who intuitively or intentionally play by unspoken rules soar. They secure opportunities, build networks, become indispensable, sometimes without even seeming to try. The difference isn't intelligence or even charm, it's awareness. Decoding these invisible dynamics is the true competitive edge. And here's the catch. Nobody is teaching you this. Schools, exam prep, basic etiquette, they focus on compliance, not mastery. Even your mentors might not know these laws consciously. But in a world where connections open doors and social capital is currency, understanding the hidden framework makes all the difference. This video is your invitation behind the scenes. If you've ever felt invisible, sidelined, or left out, you're not broken. You've just been playing without the real rulebook. So let's start learning to see the invisible. First, we'll tackle why the obvious, polite rules everyone preaches absolutely aren't enough. Just be yourself. It's the advice we hear from parents, teachers, and well-meaning friends every time a big social moment approaches. But step into a boardroom, a tight-knit social group, or even an online community, and you quickly discover authenticity alone isn't enough. The truth is, the world isn't a meritocracy of niceness or effort. It's a maze of signals, status tests, and invisible boundaries. Growing up, we're handed a set of neatly packaged instructions. Be polite, listen when someone speaks, remember birthdays. These are basics, sure, but they're not the whole story. What no one explains is that some people are playing an entirely different game, using cues and codes we never had the chance to study. They command respect without demanding it, enter rooms and somehow end up center stage, use words and gestures that quietly shift power their way. Etiquette tells you how to blend in. Real social power teaches you how to stand out. Think about those first days at school or in a new job. You quickly learn that pleasing authority and following posted rules isn't what earns trust, influence, or protection. It's how you read the room, how you interpret the subtle glances, the in-jokes, the seating arrangements. The rules that matter most aren't written on any wall or included in any welcome packet. Why are these laws kept in the shadows? Because true power in any group is often guarded, and its guardians have everything to lose by making the system too transparent. Unspoken social laws remain hidden because awareness erases advantage. Here's the truth. Nobody is born fluent in these codes. They must be learned, and sometimes unlearned through mistakes. Over the next few minutes, you'll uncover the 7 social laws that quietly run every room you enter. Not because they're in a textbook, but because they're everywhere. And until now, you've been taught to ignore them. Let's decode the foundation first. The hidden engines of status. If you walk into a room and assume the loudest, best-dressed, or highest-ranking person always holds the most influence, you're missing the hidden architecture of status. True social hierarchies are rarely obvious. They're built on cues most people ignore: posture, eye contact, who interrupts whom, even the direction people's feet point during conversation. These details create an invisible map of influence. Consider a workplace meeting. The boss kicks things off, agenda in hand. But as discussion heats up, you notice everyone, including the boss, glancing at a quiet project manager before confirming any decision. She rarely speaks, but her nods or subtle frowns guide the outcome. On paper, she's just another cog. In reality, she's the group's under-the-radar leader. Blindly respecting titles would mislead you. Noticing who commands silent deference gives you the real picture. It's the same among friends. Every group has a glue, not always the funniest or most outgoing, but the person whose opinions quietly steer what the group does Friday night or who gets invited. When a dispute arises, watch who everyone looks to, not necessarily who talks the loudest. That's the true source of authority. Online, digital spaces amplify subtle status more than ever. Ever wondered why some comments get instant likes, replies, or agreement, regardless of the content? It's less about what they say and more about the social currency they've built, their history, style, or even an aura of confidence. Watch how emerging voices become trendsetters, not by arguing, but by setting a tone others follow. Most people fall into the trap of blind respect, believing authority flows from labels, not interactions. But savvy navigators train themselves to read nuance and recalibrate as context shifts, because influence is fluid. Hierarchies can reverse in a single conversation, group chat, or crisis. If you want to thrive socially, don't just listen to what's said, observe what's unsaid. Who leans forward? Who sits at the center, even in a digital meeting? Who ignores whom? And who can get away with it? The greatest doors open not for those who bow to the obvious authority, but for those perceptive enough to follow real power as it flows. Now that you've glimpsed how status reveals itself, let's move to the next unspoken law, the reciprocity trap, and how giving can sometimes cost you everything. You've heard it all your life. Give, and you shall receive. But what if that's only half the story? The truth is, reciprocity, the social expectation to return favors, can backfire, leaving you drained, resentful, or worse, undermined. Most people assume that relentless generosity is the straight path to deepened bonds and greater influence. In reality, blind giving can become a trap. Picture the eager newcomer at work, volunteering for every task, staying late, always ready to help anyone. Instead of earning respect, they often become invisible, their willingness taken for granted or even exploited. Colleagues expect more, not out of respect, but out of habit. The same dynamic unfolds among friends. The one who always pays, always drives, always listens. Eventually, people stop valuing what is constantly available. Generosity morphs into a silent burden. Contrast naive generosity with strategic giving. Savvy social players practice discernment, giving where it creates true leverage or reciprocity. They say yes, but not always. Their no is meaningful, and their attention is perceived as valuable. By setting clear boundaries and choosing when and how to help, they avoid becoming an endless resource, and their contributions are both noticed and appreciated. Reciprocity, when weaponized, can look like manipulative networking. Someone offers unsolicited help, but their favor comes with strings attached, a subtle expectation of future allegiance or repayment. You may find yourself pressured to reciprocate, even when it's uncomfortable or unwise. In professional circles, powerful people sometimes use favors to build hidden ledgers of social debt, quietly controlling who owes whom. So how do you avoid the trap? First, notice the difference between genuine giving and generosity laced with expectation. Second, pay attention to your own boundaries. Know when to contribute and when to reserve your energy. If you feel uneasy or undervalued, step back and recalibrate your approach. Ultimately, reciprocity is about balance, not martyrdom. The goal isn't to keep score obsessively, but to recognize when the scales are quietly tipping against you. Your time and effort should be investments, not open tabs for anyone to drain. With this lens, you'll know when to give and when to value yourself enough to hold back. Next, let's reveal the hidden power of exclusion and why access is one of the sharpest tools in any social toolkit. We tend to assume that open doors and all access passes are the mark of true connection. But in reality, the most powerful and magnetic social circles thrive on the opposite, selective exclusion. If you've ever felt stung by not being invited, baffled by an inside joke, or left off a group chat, you've glimpsed how exclusion shapes social landscapes. These barriers aren't accidental. They're a form of currency that builds mystique, loyalty, and hierarchy within any tribe. While most people chase inclusion, afraid of missing out, top players understand that not everyone should get a ticket. The more difficult something is to access, the more we value it. Think of elite clubs, secret projects, even circle-within-circle friend groups. Their credibility grows precisely because there's a velvet rope. Everyone on the outside wants in, but not everyone is allowed. The fear of missing out, FOMO, drives desperate attempts to belong, yet true social credibility is reserved for those who make access feel earned, not automatic. But exclusion isn't just about hoarding power, it's also a strategic tool. You can selectively grant access, sharing a secret, extending a rare invitation, looping someone into your plans to draw people closer and build a loyal inner circle. At the same time, you can recognize when exclusion is being used against you and choose whether to accept it, challenge it, or intentionally raise your own standards for inclusion. What's key is to distinguish between exclusion that's healthy, building trust, protecting energy, and that which is toxic, petty, divisive, or manipulative. Instead of frantically seeking every group's approval, consider which circles you create and curate. If you lead, be intentional about who gets close. By setting high standards, you increase the value of being in. If you feel left out, ask whether that space is truly worth your energy or if it's time to build your own. In the world of influence, sometimes your greatest edge comes not from getting in everywhere, but from knowing the rare power of keeping some doors closed. Up next, what happens when it seems everyone agrees? The truth is, group consensus is rarely as genuine or as safe as it seems. Ever noticed how a room can shift from uncertainty to total agreement in seconds, sometimes without real discussion? Don't be fooled. Group consensus isn't always a true meeting of minds. It's often a mirage crafted by a few bold voices and a sea of silent nods. Welcome to the world of groupthink, where silent majorities bury their doubts, assuming others want the same thing, or worse, that it's safer not to stand out. Most people strive for agreement, mistaking it for security. When everyone in a team, classroom, or friend group agrees instantly, it feels harmonious. But underneath, how many truly believe what's being said? More often than not, a small, outspoken minority leads the direction, while others suppress skepticism out of fear of being ostracized, labeled difficult, or simply wrong. In this dynamic, people pleasers keep consensus afloat, convincing themselves it's easier to go along. But parroting the crowd is a high price to pay. It erodes individuality, stifles creativity, and can even breed silent resentment. Contrast this with those who understand influence, assertive voices that quietly steer collective opinion. These individuals aren't necessarily loud, but they ask pointed questions, suggest alternatives, and tactfully express doubt. Their courage in breaking the spell of surface-level agreement disrupts groupthink and often uncovers more honest, productive outcomes. The lesson? Consensus follows those who risk standing apart, momentarily, for the sake of authenticity. Want to shape group consensus? Start by listening, then seed questions at the right moment. Use subtle cues, a well-timed observation, a challenge posed as curiosity, to test if others secretly share your doubts. Validate hesitations you notice in others. Gradually, you'll find the agreement was shallower than it looked. It's tempting to chase the comfort of the crowd, but true impact comes from steering it, not blending in. When you learn to see through the illusion of consensus, you gain the power to shape what others believe is possible. Next, let's explore how invisible social ledgers dictate the loyalties and obligations threading through every relationship you have. Beneath the friendly surface of every relationship pulses a silent ledger, an ongoing tally of favors given, time spent, and support exchanged. This invisible system of social debt quietly governs loyalty and obligation, pulling strings on our connections even when no one admits it exists. Unlike financial debts, these balances are rarely discussed, yet their effects are unmistakable. Who shows up when you ask for help? Who feels entitled to your time? Who grows resentful after repeated one-sided giving? In open transactional relationships, the rules are clear. Favors are repaid, exchanges are explicit. There's comfort in knowing where you stand. Contrast this with the subtle tension that grows when expectations go unspoken. A friend covers your lunch again and again, silently waiting for you to reciprocate. A coworker stays late to help you, anticipating payback down the line. When those debts linger unacknowledged, gratitude curdles into quiet irritation, and loyalty can turn into a burden. Recognizing social debt is a necessary skill. In close circles, keeping the ledger balanced nurtures trust. If you notice a friend giving more than they get, initiate a gesture, an invitation, a compliment, or a favor to restore equilibrium. In the workplace, the stakes are higher. Someone who collects favors may later expect your support, a vote, or inside info. If you're always the one giving, pause and consider whether it's truly appreciated or silently expected. To manage social debt, communicate when you feel grateful, and avoid keeping mental scorecards that turn generosity into contracts. If obligations feel heavy, address them honestly. Sometimes a conversation can clear misunderstandings before they fester. And when you're given an opportunity, a referral, a job lead, an introduction, don't forget that a thank you and a returned favor are currency that build your credibility. Knowing when to leverage social debt can be just as powerful. Help others thoughtfully, not endlessly. Done right, it establishes respect and connection. Done blindly, it leaves you depleted. The healthiest relationships are those where both sides feel seen, valued, and unburdened by silent expectations. With your account balanced, let's turn to the next unspoken law: how gossip and rumor aren't just background noise, but the very currency of your social reputation. In the game of social capital, information is currency, and gossip is its fastest, most volatile form. Reputations aren't built solely on actions or achievements. They're shaped and reshaped by the stories circulating when you're not in the room. Most people cling to the illusion that staying above the fray keeps them safe. They tell themselves that by ignoring gossip, their reputation will remain intact. But social reality works differently. Silence often leaves your story in someone else's hands. Contrast this passive approach with the insight of those who understand narrative management. These individuals don't necessarily spread rumors, but they never ignore the rumor mill. Instead, they seed their own version of events, clarify misunderstandings quietly, and make allies among the influential connectors who pass information. Measured, consistent truth rather than emotional outbursts. People remember composure in chaos. Third, understand that a single misstep can echo loudly, but a pattern of integrity repairs even the messiest reputations over time. Ultimately, every social space runs on talk, and pretending otherwise hands your leverage to others. Use the gossip circuit as a barometer. What's spreading about you? Who benefits? How can you clarify, redirect, or diffuse harmful threads before they entrench? The goal isn't to manipulate, but to participate, consciously and wisely, in the stories that shape your trajectory. You can't always control what's said, but you can control how you respond and the evidence you consistently provide. In a world where narrative is everything, accepting the gossip game is not cynicism, it's survival. But what about those who try too hard to control their image? Next, we explore the paradoxical power of nonchalance and how effort can sometimes repel instead of attract. There's an unspoken law in every social interaction. The harder you chase approval, the further it slips away. This is the paradox of effort. Too much visible eagerness often makes people uneasy. It signals desperation, dependence, or lack of options. Instead of building rapport, overtrying can subtly repel others, whether in friendships, romance, or professional life. Think of the classic approval seeker, always available, constantly checking in, visibly anxious for reassurance. Their presence becomes heavy, their interest claustrophobic. People may tolerate their attention, but rarely respect it. Why? Because value is inferred from scarcity. What's abundant is seen as less desirable. Contrast this with the person who moves through life with effortless composure. They don't rush to fill every silence or compete for attention. Their rare input is weighted, their detachment quietly magnetic. Strategic indifference doesn't mean apathy or arrogance. It's the confidence to let things unfold, to hold back and create space for curiosity. The world is wired to lean in where someone seems slightly out of reach. How do you project this gravity of nonchalance? First, resist the urge to over-explain, overshare, or overcommit. Set boundaries on your time and energy. Let your no be as respected as your yes. Embrace silence. Sometimes the pause speaks louder than any attempt to impress. Practice delayed response, both verbally and digitally. The person who isn't instantly available earns attention. When you stop sprinting toward acceptance, you pivot from seeking approval to commanding it. True respect is given to those who value themselves enough to forgo chasing it from others. Combining all these unspoken laws, you become more than just a participant in social games. You take the reins. Next, we'll bring all these principles together and explore how becoming fluent in the invisible rulebook can transform not only your relationships, but the trajectory of your life. You've just uncovered the invisible blueprint behind every social interaction. 7 laws that decide who rises, who follows, and who's left in the background. Most people move through life unconscious, defaulting to what they've been told. Follow the posted rules, stay agreeable, blend in, and hope to be valued. But as you now know, real influence, loyalty, and freedom aren't handed to those who simply fit in. They're claimed by those who learn to read, challenge, and sometimes rewrite the unspoken code. Look back. You've seen how true status is rarely about titles, how giving can enslave as easily as it can connect, and how exclusion, far from just cruelty, is often the fuel for value and trust. You now recognize that groupthink isn't consensus, but a clever illusion, and that invisible ledgers of social debt bind us closer or breed resentment. You see that rumors are not just idle chatter, they are reputation in motion. And perhaps most importantly, you've learned that in the gravity of nonchalance, confidence is broadcast by restraint, not by chase. Drifting through social life on autopilot means dancing to a tune you never chose. With awareness, every conversation, meeting, group chat, or gathering becomes an opportunity to practice conscious strategy. You can now start to observe who leads and who follows, who gives and who only takes, who invites and who is always left out. See the currency in every favor, the truth behind consensus, the ripple of a well-timed rumor, and the power in every pause. So here's my challenge for you this week. Step out of the background. Watch social dynamics unfold, at school, at work, online, in circles big and small. Experiment with a law that felt most unfamiliar, whether it's holding back your eagerness or quietly tipping the scales of a group decision. Reflect at day's end. What did you notice? How did people respond? What patterns emerged that you'd never noticed before? And finally, ask yourself, if these rules came from invisibility and tradition, why not rewrite some for yourself? What would your relationships, your ambitions, your life look like if you led not just with intention, but with mastery of the script everyone else stumbles through blindly? Which of these unspoken rules will you begin to rewrite, starting now?